Welcome to Beat Diabetes. We're going to be looking at several insights relating to that subject, including why the dinner meal is so vitally important if you're ever going to get victory over high blood sugar. Well, we have several things to talk about today. Hope you're having a good Saturday or whenever it is that you see this video. And I do want to mention, some of you are wondering, why is Dennis producing more videos than normal? It has to do with this 2022 challenge. It's been a challenge for me just to keep up with it. And I'm trying to make more videos, and normally I make them available to our challenge people only, but in this case, I wanted to make it available to everybody. And it's just been a lot of work, but it's been very gratifying, and we're getting lots of good feedback of people that have been helped and blessed, and we appreciate that. So we're going to start out with a comment that was left under one of my recent videos by one of our challenge people, and this individual, I believe is a lady, says this: I've found that if I eat anything other than meat, salad, low-carb vegetables, eggs, and drink water, if I do anything else besides that, my sugar will go 300 to 400. So I don't experiment with recipes right now until I can get my numbers under 100. Well, I think that's very smart. And notice what this person says, I have found. And that says so much just in those few words. I have found. 3 words, but that tells you a lot. Number one, it means they've been checking their blood sugar. They've been doing some serious inquiring about their own body and their own health and their own glucose spikes. And she says, I have found that if I ever depart from just basic meat, salad, low-carb vegetables, eggs, and drinking water, if I do anything beyond that, it just spikes my blood sugar. So if I'm reading what she's saying right, she's saying some of these recipes you're giving us, Dennis, they're not quite working for me. In my own experience, I've found that I've just got to stay with the absolute basics. And my response is, good for you. It's great that you're testing yourself, great that you're figuring out what works and what does not. And if Dennis gives you a recipe and it's supposed to work, but it doesn't, then drop it. There's nothing so special about a Dennis recipe or something I've located that it should not be dropped if it affects your blood sugar too much. And so I just think this is a smart lady. This is a wise lady. And this is a lady who's determined to beat diabetes. And guess what? I think she's going to do it. Absolutely. Now, one thing I will remind you of, for those of you that are starting out in a place where you had really high blood sugar, right now you should be in what Atkins used to call in the old days the induction phase, or what I call the phase 1 part of beating diabetes, which means you are tougher on yourself now than you may be later on, because right now you've got like one goal only, and that is to get my glucose numbers down in a hurry. So you will do whatever it takes. You will be ruthless. You will be radical. You will be aggressive. You will be very careful to make sure that you're eating foods that work for you. And how do you know? Well, you test your blood sugar. So this lady's saying, hey, the only thing I can really trust are meat, vegetables, some eggs, and I drink water, and that works. If I do much else, it doesn't work. Good for you. Good for you. Now, you may say, all right, suppose I do get my blood sugar down, and I don't think you hardly need to say suppose. It's almost for sure going to happen unless you burned out all your beta cells. And even then, you just take the necessary amount of insulin, eat low carb, and you can still get your numbers down. I mean, we've got type 1s that tell us I'm hitting 4.7, 4.8 as an A1C. Yeah, they're taking insulin, but they don't have to take much because they're eating so low carb. Anyway, the question is, especially for type 2s, once I do get it down, and I've gone through phase 1, I've gone through the induction phase, you might call it basic training for diabetics, boot camp. You get real tough on yourself. You're kind of making up for all those years and decades where you were so easy and you ate just anything and everything and you ate often and you ate too much. So after years and decades of eating the wrong way, you get tough on yourself for 3 months, 4 months, whatever it takes, and you get your glucose down at a reasonable level, which in my thinking would be around the 5s. You say, well, how can I moderate it? Well, here's how you moderate it. You can make some slight changes and try them. You moderate it as your diet, your lifestyle, as far as Mike the meter will allow you, and no further. So if you say, well, I've been eating my dinner at 5, I'd rather eat at 6. Well, then you try that. Once you get your glucose at a normal level, a reasonable level, and you say, or maybe I'd rather try 630. Well, try it by all means. But if you find your fasting glucose starts going up, and your blood sugar gets out of control, then you bring it right back down. Or you say, well, I kind of miss beans. I think I'm going to have a bowl of bean soup, but I'll make sure and put lots of broccoli and some other vegetables in it so it's not just pure beans. And that may work for you. But again, you get Mike's approval. You test with Mike. So that's how you're going to moderate once you get past phase 1 or the induction phase or boot camp or basic training, whatever you want to call it. You get past that really tough time on yourself where you've got one thing in mind, and that is I'm going to get this blood sugar down low. All right. Now this individual, this next comment I want to share, I just loved it when I read it. It's like, I've got to share this with you folks. And this is about a man who is gone now, and he got diabetes when he was 29, and he lived to be 92. And they don't say how long ago it was when he passed away, but it sounds to me like he got diabetes back when almost nobody knew anything about diabetes. And he figured some things out himself. Listen to what they say. My dad got type 2 diabetes when he was 29 years old. He lived a good life until 92, which to me, if you get into the 90s or even the mid 80s, you've won the longevity lottery. You've done very, very well, especially if you make it with good health. And he did. So they say he lived a good life until 92 because he took care of himself. He never had any complications. Rewind. He never had any complications. Had diabetes since his late 20s, 29. Lived to be 92, never had complications. How in the world did he did that? Now, that was back before there was Mike the meter. There were no 5-second blood sugar tests that you could do on yourself back in those days. But he managed. He ate foods he knew would not spike his blood sugar. What? That sounds like what I'm telling you all. He ate foods he knew would not spike his blood sugar. How did he know that? Well, this individual says in those days he used to test his blood sugar with a syringe and a Benedict solution. Well, this was new on me. I had no idea what in the world is a Benedict solution. Sounds about like the name of my wife, but this is something totally different. Well, a Benedict solution is a solution you can buy, and I looked it up on Amazon. You can still buy it, but you don't need it nowadays with Mike the meter. But in those days, that was one of the ways you could test your blood sugar. It was blue in color, and what you would do is you would urinate. You would mix the proper amount of urine. I don't know all the exact numbers and how this worked, but somehow you would mix your urine with this Benedict solution. It starts out blue, says it was heated over a flame. You mix the urine with the blue Benedict solution. I guess you heat it up at that point, and then you check the color. It starts out blue, but if it goes to green or yellow, that's moderate glucose. That's not too bad. If it goes to they call it a brick red or a bright red, that's danger. That's the danger zone. So you never want to see red. Orange is not so great, but green and yellow aren't too bad. This person says a light kind of dirty yellow wasn't too high. Turquoise was very good. My dad's sugar test used to be a light dirty yellow sometimes, most of the time turquoise. So this man would frequently test his blood sugar and check how foods reacted, how his body reacted to foods with this Benedict test, urinating into a cup, mixing urine with the Benedict solution, checking out the color, saying, my blood sugar is too high, I better not eat that anymore. Doing almost the same thing we do today, except he didn't have Mike the meter, he had this Benedict solution. And he kept his diet Careful. He kept himself careful to eat the right foods and avoid the wrong foods. Most of the time, the test turned out turquoise, which meant very good, not much blood sugar. It didn't give you a number, obviously. It just gave you a color, and you couldn't be quite as precise as we can be today, but that wasn't bad, and it sure worked for him. A, no diabetic complications. B, lived to be 92. And C, he started out diabetic when he was 29. I was blown away by this. I don't know who sent this, but I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. That is so thrilling to me and encouraging. And I learned something that I had no idea you could even do that back in those days. It says at 92 years old, he only wore eyeglasses to read. He loved reading. Every day he'd read a newspaper and spiritual books. Thank God I've learned a lot from him. God bless his soul as he's now resting peacefully. That is just so beautiful. It just absolutely warms my heart. I'm just thrilled. I just think that is so good and so encouraging to us because, folks, we're doing the same thing except in a higher tech way. We don't have to pee in a cup and mix our urine with some Benedict solution and check out the color. We can use micrometer, and in a few seconds we can find out where we are. So we've got some advantages, but this guy knew what to do, and he did the best he could with the technology he had, which was a Benedict solution, and it was fabulous. And he lived a long life, and he had no complications. How beautiful is that? God bless this man, and God bless the person who shared this about their father. That is just wonderful. All right, one final thought, and that has to do with dinner. Last night, for my dinner, I had a hamburger patty, which was about 1/3 pound of hamburger, and a chaffle, and I smeared some cream cheese over the top of it, and then I sprinkled some of that everything bagel seasoning on top. And after I ate that hamburger and that chaffle with the cream cheese and the bagel seasoning, I was quite full. And I thought, that's a very filling meal. And the nice thing about it was that was my dinner meal, which meant that I'm going to be going into bedtime without hardly any kind of a glucose spike. Now, to be honest, I did have, this is Friday, so a lot of times on that was Friday last night. A lot of times on my weekends, I'll have a keto dessert of some kind. So I had a keto version of chocolate nut cluster, and that was really good too. But I thought to myself, dinner is so important. And this is like the perfect dinner. In a sense, essentially, I was eating a keto or a carnivore dinner because the chaffle is eggs and it is cheese, eggs and cheese. And then I do throw in a little almond flour and a couple of tablespoons of heavy cream. It was beautiful. And by the way, if you hear a noise in the background, my wife is vacuuming. She doesn't know I snuck into the studio to record, but that's okay. Anyway, I just want to emphasize dinner is very important to keep it low carb. If you do the Bulletproof coffee for breakfast and you do a very low carb or essentially a carnivore for dinner, then for lunch, that's when you want to have your vegetables. If you have some iffy foods you're going to be eating, and if you're into phase 1, you really ought not to be eating any iffy foods. But if you do have some iffy foods, they ought to go at the lunchtime meal, not the dinner time, so that you get a nice low carb meal for dinner, and you can sleep all night long with reasonable blood sugar. So hope all this has been helpful. Hope it has been encouraging. God is an encouraging God, and I want this channel to be an encouraging channel because I am a follower of Christ, and I want you to recognize that there are good things ahead for you. If you'll stay the course, you'll do what you know to do. There's no reason why you can't be like this guy, not necessarily live to 92. That's all in God's hands, but to live a good, healthy life without diabetic complications. And, one of the things I pray for is let me live to be relatively old, with good eyesight, with good hearing, good mobility, and a sharp mind. If I can do that, I'll figure I'm doing pretty well. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. If so, give it a thumbs up. Be sure and subscribe if you have not yet subscribed. And that way you'll be notified when we post new videos. God bless, and we'll see you again soon.